John Liddle here for SWOSUathletics.com, joined by SWOSU Men's Golf, as the SWOSU Men's Golf team has again gotten onto the national perspective of things, heading to the D2 National Tournament coming up the 18th to the 22nd. So this time next week they'll be heading out to North Carolina to take part in that. And we're joined by the head coach of the men's golf team right now. Brad Fleetwood is with us, along with junior golfer Jake Duvall. Guys, thanks so much for taking the time today. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Man, we were rooting for you guys from afar and out in the Chicagoland area, of course, as you guys were playing at Cog Hill and absolutely ripping up that course. And it wasn't anything where you guys were slow to start or anything like that, Coach Fleetwood. It was right from the get-go. You guys very, very consistent and starting out of the gates. How much did that help you have confidence of what kind of week it was going to be like for your team?
Well, always starting well helps. You know, it's always hard, especially in a tournament like that, to come from behind. I think if you look at the teams that that advanced, they were pretty much all up there for the majority of the golf tournament. But you know, 54-hole golf tournament, especially over 3 days, it's somewhat of a marathon. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, we went out and played very strong the first day. Did not play our best golf the second day, but our guys came out. We finished really well, and in that particular round, I think we played like our last 2 or 3 holes at 2 or 3 under, just to keep ourselves in that top 5. And I think those last few holes that day probably provided as much momentum as we had the whole week. You know, again, it was just a day we struggled, especially about mid-round, and for us to kind of bounce back and finish that way, I think really provided the momentum going into the last round.
And that last round was incredible as well. And we'll go to Jake for this. You know, that last round, you know you guys are in position. You got a great shot, but you've got to stay up there. And so, among the guys, what were you guys talking about going into that final round?
Pretty much what we just talked about was, we're not going to go out there and just try and hold that 5th spot. I mean, we want to play aggressive and try and win the tournament, which we could have. We started off incredible, but kind of finished poorly. But like when in golf, you can't just try and hold something. You know, you got to be aggressive still. I mean, you got to have you got to play smart, but you got to play aggressive, or else you're going to give it away. You can't just try and hold on to it. That's what we talked about.
Well, you guys didn't give it away at all, and you know, you finished right there, like you said, had an opportunity to win the thing, and it was really crowded up at the top, Coach Fleetwood. It wasn't anything where anybody really ran away, so to speak, with this tournament. The competitiveness of that super regional, how do you think it might help you heading into nationals?
Oh, I think it would be a great benefit for us, because it was a very competitive super regional. And the teams that are advancing out of our super regional have just as good a chance as anybody to win the national championship. So, but you know, Jake nailed it on the head. I mean, the guys went out and they played aggressively, and especially in a field like that, again, where it is super competitive. You know, if you're just trying to hang on to be in that top 5, it's usually just enough to stay out of the top 5. So our guys went out knowing they needed to play aggressive against, again, a very good field. And as you mentioned, you know, there were times during the day where we had an opportunity to, I think we were just 1 or 2 shots out of the lead at some points. And as Jake said, we didn't finish as well as we wanted to, but a lot of that had to do is we knew where we stood. And 1st or 5th really, at that point, didn't make a difference. It's a tee time at the national championship, and that's it. So, so there were some instances towards the last couple holes that we played pretty conservative, knowing that we didn't need to do anything silly. But yeah, I think it'll be great preparation for the national championship again, because that was such a competitive field.
We're talking with Brad Fleetwood, Jake Duvall from SWOSU Men's Golf. They're headed to the national tournament. Let's talk about that now, guys. What an amazing thing this is. And Jake, you were with this team a couple years ago when you guys did advance to the national tournament. What is it like for you? How excited are you to be able to go back again?
I'm really excited, because the first time we kind of went there, we were just happy to be there. You know, it was the first time in program history since we've been Division II that we made it the first time. So I mean, it was a great experience. But I think we were a lot of us were overwhelmed a bit when we got there. But this year we're going back to get some redemption. I'm really excited. We got a good team, so it should be fun.
Well, Coach Fleetwood, when you look at this course out in North Carolina, you take a look at it, and do you, as a coach, try to break it down? It might play into my team's hands, it might not, or is it just kind of a wait and see type thing once you guys get there for hopefully a practice round or something like that?
You know, we'll obviously take a look at the golf course before we get there, and we'll be familiar with it. But you do so much in preparation actually during the practice round. There's just not a whole lot. You know, I was fortunate enough to be there with the girls last year at the exact same place. However, we played a different golf course, so I don't know much about this particular course. I know there's going to be a lot of elevation change just because of the geographically where it's located at. But it's a great golf course. They've had a Champions Tour event there, so it's a quality golf course. But as you mentioned, a lot of the preparation will go on in the practice round, as it does with so many of our golf tournaments.
So, Jake, when you're going through a practice round before an event, what are you looking for? What are you trying to make sure that you have knowledge of in order to play your best when it counts?
Normally what we do is we kind of see what shots you could hit off the tees, aggressive shots, and then most of the work we do is inside of 30 yards and around the green, because that's probably the most important for scoring. So we spend a lot of time on the greens, hitting different putts to different areas of the green where the pins might be, so that's what we do a lot, really.
Fantastic. And when you're back here, Coach Fleetwood, what are we doing for this week? Do you give the guys some time off since school's done, or national championships coming up? We gotta keep practicing.
No, we keep practicing. We'll practice this afternoon. I give the guys a little break this weekend. One being Mother's Day, and two just we. One thing about our regional is it's always during finals week, so there's so much going on. So. You know, we flew back Thursday midday, and we had guys going straight back and taking finals. We had guys had to take as many as 3 on Friday. So it's just, so with that, we just kind of decompress for the weekend. And we're going to get back at it this afternoon. And this should be a fairly relaxed week from a practice standpoint in regards to what it looked like last week. I mean, obviously school's done, and we can just focus on golf right now. And so but we stay together. We all make sure everybody is still here, and it's kind of business as usual. Kind of keep a routine.
Has it sunk in that 2 out of 3 years your team is headed to a national championship event? That this program's definitely on an upswing. What do you think about the program overall right now in relation to having now made national tournaments in 2 out of 3 years?
Yeah, no, it's. It's such a privilege to be able to do that 2 out of 3 years, and it's something that I told Jake and the team that went to Hershey, Pennsylvania 2 years ago to one, enjoy the experience, and enjoy this opportunity, because regardless of how talented, there's a lot of talented teams that aren't going to be playing this week, and regardless of your talent, you're never guaranteed this opportunity again, and Jake's fortunate enough to get to experience this 2 out of 3 years, and hopefully 3 out of 4 years next year. But again, I'll tell him the same thing. Don't take this for granted, because it's never a given. So we're extremely grateful to have the opportunity, and it's so much, says so much for our players and just the kids we have on our team right now. They work extremely hard. We got a lot of talent on our team. We got a lot of young talent. I mean, Jake's a junior. He's our oldest one. We're going to this national championship with 2 freshmen, 2 sophomore, and a junior. And so speaking of upswing, the upswing is really good right now. And for us to be able to go and get this type of experience, national championship experience with such a young team, man, it will pay such huge dividends in the future. And so we're obviously focused on right now and focused on the present, but the future of the program looks awesome as well. So we're excited, and we're gonna go out, as Jake said. I believe 2 years ago we might have been a little awestruck in the situation, and maybe a little overwhelmed. And even though we're young, Jake's going to bring back so much experience. Even just one guy brings back so much experience for a situation like that. And we just got to really, for a young group, we've got a really mature group. And they've played, not necessarily in a national championship stage, but they've played on big stages all across the world, as we're, several international guys. So this type of pressure, this type of competition is not new to them. Although the national championship is new, this type of competition is not new. So we're going to go in, as I said, with a young group, but a very experienced group. So,
well, we're proud of you and the rest of the guys. Carry that SWOSU flag and fly it up high in North Carolina, and we hope you guys are able to come back with a national championship.
Will do.
It's awesome. It's awesome that you have the chance. John Liddle for Brad Fleetwood, Jake Duvall, SWOSUathletics.com.